He was Hollywood's original bad boy, dashing, daring, and dangerously charming. Errol Flynn lit up the screen as Robin Hood and Pirate Kings, but behind the swashbuckling image was a life steeped in scandal. From underage affairs to voyeurism, addiction, and shocking court trials, Flynn's off-screen behavior was far darker than the roles he played. Now, 70 years after his death, chilling revelations continue to surface: secret affairs, hidden cameras, and rumors of espionage. Was he just a reckless star, or something far more sinister? The truth, long buried, is finally coming to light, and it's darker than anyone imagined. The early years, a rebel in the making. Long before he was the swashbuckling rogue on the silver screen, Errol Flynn was a handful of trouble in a schoolboy's uniform. Born in 1909 in Tasmania, Flynn was the son of a brilliant biologist. But the wild streak in him came from somewhere else entirely. He wasn't interested in lectures or structure. He wanted danger, excitement, and freedom. Even as a teenager, Flynn couldn't stay in one place for long. He was kicked out of multiple schools in both Australia and England, not for failing classes, but for causing trouble. One headmaster called him incorrigible. At one school, he was expelled after an alleged affair with an older maid, an early sign of the womanizing behavior that would follow him for the rest of his life. Adding to the chaos, Flynn was briefly engaged to Naomi Campbell Dibbs, the daughter of a wealthy Australian family. But once the scandal with the maid came out, the engagement was called off. It was the first of many public romantic disasters in Flynn's life. He was only a teenager, but already making headlines for all the wrong reasons. By the time Flynn left school for good, it was clear he wouldn't follow in his father's academic footsteps. He needed to find a place in the world where he could be the star of his own story. A story not written in books, but in bold, reckless actions. Flynn wasn't interested in the straight path. He wanted to live fast and make his own rules. Flynn's rebellious nature didn't end with school. In fact, it got more dangerous. After failing to settle into normal work, he set off for one of the wildest frontiers left in the world, a place where gold, risk, and lawlessness ruled. That's where the next chapter of his chaotic story begins. Adventures in Papua New Guinea. In his early 20s, Errol Flynn headed to Papua New Guinea, chasing rumors of gold and fortune. He didn't want a desk job, he wanted adventure. He joined a mining operation in the thick jungles, hoping to strike it rich. But as always, trouble found him first. And this time, it nearly killed him. On one expedition, Flynn claimed his group was ambushed by a local tribe. Arrows flew from the trees, and his hired crew panicked. Flynn later said he had to shoot one of his attackers to escape. He described hiding in the jungle all night, waiting for revenge that never came. Whether every detail was true or not, the story only added to the myth of Flynn as a man who lived on the edge. But the drama didn't stop there. When he made it back to camp, Flynn was arrested and charged with murder. He represented himself in court, spinning a tale of survival and self-defense. The judge believed him, and the charges were dropped. Flynn would later say, "It was the only time I got in trouble that didn't involve a woman." Even though the gold rush dream fell apart, Flynn's time in New Guinea gave him something else, a dangerous edge and a suitcase full of stories. He wasn't just a young man anymore. He was a survivor, a storyteller, and a thrill-seeker who'd tasted blood and kept walking. That near-death experience would haunt him and thrill him for the rest of his life. The gold may have been fake, but the danger was real. And when Errol Flynn finally came home, he had no intention of slowing down. He wasn't looking for peace. He was looking for a stage. And that stage appeared sooner than anyone expected. Back in Australia, a low-budget film crew was casting for a wild ocean adventure. They didn't just need an actor. They needed someone who looked like danger, lived like danger, and wasn't afraid of it. Errol Flynn was their man. Hollywood beckons. Flynn's first acting role came almost by accident. A small Australian production, in the wake of the Bounty, was looking for someone to play Fletcher Christian, the famous sailor who led the mutiny on the Bounty. When they met Flynn, with his wild past and piercing eyes, they didn't need an audition. He was the role. The film didn't make headlines, but it was enough to light a fire in Flynn. He moved to Britain, eager to become a serious actor. He joined a repertory theater company and began learning the craft. But, true to form, he didn't last long. After just a few months, he got into a fight with a female stage manager and pushed her down a flight of stairs. He was fired on the spot. But even when he fell, Flynn fell into the next opportunity. Warner Brothers in London offered him a part in a small film. His charisma on camera was impossible to ignore. And soon, he got the call that changed everything. A one-way ticket to Hollywood. He arrived in Los Angeles as a relative unknown, but not for long. Within a year, Flynn was cast in Captain Blood, a pirate film that would launch him into stardom. He starred opposite Olivia de Havilland, and their chemistry lit up the screen. Audiences fell in love with him. His accent, his smirk, his swordplay. He became the face of the Golden Age swashbuckler. But off-screen, that roguish charm was already spiraling out of control. With fame came freedom, and Flynn wasted no time using it. He drank, he partied, and he pursued women with a reckless hunger. But while Hollywood saw a dashing hero, those closest to him saw the storm brewing. His first marriage was already turning into a public mess, and it wouldn't be his last. Tumultuous marriages. Flynn's first marriage was like a movie itself, fast, passionate, and doomed. He married Lily Demita, a glamorous French actress 5 years older than him. She was already a star. He was just rising. They clashed from the beginning. Public fights, private screaming matches, and jealous outbursts were a regular part of their life together. Despite the chaos, Flynn used her Hollywood connections to boost his own career. Demita retired from acting shortly after their wedding, and Flynn's career soared while hers faded. Friends described the couple as fire and gasoline. They couldn't live together peacefully, but neither wanted to be the one to walk away. When they did finally divorce, it was bitter and costly. His second wife, Nora Eddington, was a complete contrast. He met her while standing trial for statutory rape. She was working at the courthouse cigar stand, young, quiet, and Catholic. Flynn was relentless in pursuing her, and eventually, she gave in. She became pregnant quickly, and Flynn agreed to marry her, secretly in Acapulco. But marriage didn't tame him. Even during her pregnancy, Flynn disappeared to New York for months, returning just in time for the birth. He cheated on her constantly, even with her friends. Their relationship became more of an arrangement than a romance. Flynn later claimed he loved her, but his behavior told a different story. Just when it seemed like things couldn't get messier, Flynn found himself tangled in a scandal that rocked Hollywood to its core. His charm and fame couldn't shield him from what came next, a courtroom drama that would follow him for the rest of his life. Scandalous affairs and legal troubles. In 1942, Errol Flynn faced the most serious charges of his career: statutory rape, not once but twice. 2 teenage girls came forward claiming they had been assaulted by the star. Flynn, always known for his quick mouth, had allegedly bragged, "I didn't even touch her." That quote became evidence and a public relations nightmare. The press had a field day. Headlines screamed accusations. Suddenly, Flynn wasn't just the devilishly handsome hero, he was a predator. Warner Brothers panicked and hired Jerry Giesler, a ruthless defense lawyer known for tearing accusers apart in court. And that's exactly what happened. Giesler questioned the girls' morals, backgrounds, and intentions, painting them as fame-hungry opportunists. Flynn played the charming rogue, smiling at the jury, acting like the whole thing was beneath him. After a tense trial, the verdict came back. Not guilty. Flynn walked free, but his image was forever changed. The phrase, "in like Flynn," entered pop culture, meaning someone who could get away with anything, especially with women. It became a badge of both admiration and disgust. Though he beat the charges in court, the whispers never stopped. Some believed him, others never did. And Flynn? He just kept going, like nothing happened. But even with his reputation shaken, Flynn couldn't stop. Fame gave him power, and power gave him access. Behind closed doors, he was hiding even more disturbing behavior, habits that turned his home into something far darker than Hollywood ever imagined. Voyeuristic tendencies. Errol Flynn's mansion, Mulholland Farm, wasn't just a celebrity bachelor pad. It was a place built for indulgence, secrets, and control. Hidden behind its glamorous facade were two-way mirrors, peepholes, and microphones, installed not for security, but for voyeurism. He spied on female guests, recording them without consent. What started as charm quickly turned sinister. At parties, guests were drawn into a wild, intoxicating scene. Alcohol flowed, and inhibitions vanished. What they didn't know was that Flynn was watching, and sometimes listening, from behind the walls. It was his playground, and he was both host and hunter. He liked control, one former guest whispered later. He liked the idea of knowing things you didn't. As stories leaked out, Hollywood insiders became wary. Directors grew cautious. Co-stars kept their distance. But Flynn didn't seem to care. He believed he was untouchable, and for a time, he was. The rumors only fed his legend as the wildest man in town. Eventually, his secrets couldn't stay hidden. After his death, court proceedings forced the relinquishing of Mulholland Farm to his ex-wife, Lily Damita. That's when workers discovered the hidden wiring, mirrors, and panels. The home was a physical map of his darkest impulses, a house of shadows built by a man who couldn't stop looking. As Flynn's personal life spiraled into deeper darkness, so did his health. Years of hard drinking, drugs, and wild nights began to show, not just in his appearance, but in every part of his once flawless career. The golden boy of the silver screen was fading fast, substance abuse and decline. By the late 1940s, the toll of Errol Flynn's lifestyle had started to show. His once lean frame grew bloated, his skin paled, and his charm dimmed behind tired, bloodshot eyes. Behind the camera, he was no longer the reliable lead. He was the man directors dreaded working with. Alcohol and drugs had become his constant companions. Flynn's drinking had passed the point of no return. He started injecting oranges with brandy on set to sneak liquor past directors who banned booze. On other productions, he simply bribed assistants to spike his coffee. The behavior was reckless, but it was also strategic. Flynn didn't just want to drink. He wanted to outsmart everyone while doing it. His addiction turned violent, especially toward his second wife, Nora Eddington. During one episode, he bit her arm so viciously that it had to be placed in a cast. He often claimed to remember nothing the next day. The man who once swashbuckled across screens was now battling demons that no sword could cut through. Professionally, he was still getting roles, but his energy was gone. His performances became sluggish and erratic. Producers edited around his hangovers. Makeup artists struggled to cover the damage. His aura of control was gone, and what remained was a fading icon clawing at relevance. Hollywood wasn't just watching Flynn fall. They were preparing to move on. As the spotlight dimmed, Flynn clung to what he could: fame, women, and fantasy. But while his health faded, another storm was brewing: the fallout from his destructive relationships and financial irresponsibility. The next chapter in his life would expose just how quickly a Hollywood legend could lose everything. Financial woes. For someone who made millions, Errol Flynn died with little to his name. He had spent his fortune on yachts, women, parties, lawsuits, and lawyers. His 18-year contract with Warner Brothers ended in bitterness, and after that, the roles dried up. He was still famous, but now infamous for the wrong reasons. Alimony payments to 2 ex-wives drained his income. Maintaining appearances cost even more. His lavish Mulholland estate, his beloved boat, and his fast-paced lifestyle were a constant drain. Flynn took on roles he once would have laughed at, just to cover the bills. His pride took a hit, but his ego demanded the illusion of wealth. Eventually, Flynn was borrowing money, making deals he couldn't keep, and burning bridges with producers who once trusted him. Friends tried to help, but he pushed them away. Flynn didn't want pity. He wanted the world to keep believing he was the star he used to be. But Hollywood is a business. Sentiment doesn't pay the bills. With his looks fading and his reputation bruised, even tabloids lost interest. Flynn wasn't just broke, he was irrelevant. And for a man who lived off attention, that might have been the greatest loss of all. And yet, even in his lowest moments, Errol Flynn couldn't stay away from scandal. As his money vanished, his romances grew more controversial, and his final great love affair would shock the world, not just for who it was with, but for how young she really was. Controversial relationships. Just when people thought Flynn couldn't shock them anymore, he did. His final companion was Beverly Odland, a teenage actress he met in the late 1950s. She was just 15 when they began seeing each other, though Flynn always claimed she was older. By the time he died, she was living with him full-time. Beverly was with Flynn when he passed away. Their relationship, which he described as his last chance at real love, was heavily criticized. Many called it exploitative. Her mother was accused of enabling the affair for fame. Flynn didn't seem to care. He called Beverly the only one who saw the real me. They planned to marry. Tabloids buzzed with rumors. Some reported he was trying to sneak off and wed her in secret. Others said he was grooming her for stardom. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear: Flynn's behavior hadn't changed. He still sought power in every relationship, and he still saw women as escape routes from responsibility. Even as the world watched in horror, Flynn acted as if he was bulletproof. "I like my whiskey old and my women young," he once bragged. It was a line meant to sound bold, but by the end, it echoed with something far more tragic. A man clinging to youth through others, because he had lost his own. With his final romance under scrutiny and his health in rapid decline, Errol Flynn drifted toward the end of a life filled with glory, scandal, and self-destruction. And when it finally came, it wasn't with the drama of a film. It was quiet, sudden, and heartbreaking. Death and posthumous revelations. Errol Flynn died on October 14, 1959 in Vancouver, Canada, at just 50 years old. What was meant to be a brief trip to sell his yacht ended in tragedy. He had been complaining about pain in his legs and chest, but no one expected what happened next. One moment, he was chatting in a doctor's home. The next, he was unresponsive. He was rushed to the hospital, but it was too late. The cause of death was a massive heart attack, brought on by a body ravaged by years of drinking, drug use, and stress. The autopsy revealed severe liver damage. His liver was so scarred from cirrhosis that doctors said he would have died from that within a year if the heart hadn't given out first. At the time of his death, Flynn had multiple women claiming to have his children, and mounting debts left his estate in shambles. His once grand Mulholland mansion had already been surrendered, and his last romantic companion, Beverly Adland, was left behind to deal with the media storm. For all the fame, Flynn died almost broke, with more scandals than tributes filling the headlines. Still, some fans mourned him as the swashbuckling legend of Hollywood's golden age. Others saw his passing as the final chapter of a life filled with danger and deception. Errol Flynn was gone, but the controversy was just getting started. Just when the world began to move on, new stories started surfacing, stories that cast Flynn's legacy in an even darker light. Books and former friends came forward with shocking claims, and what they revealed would forever change how we remember him. Allegations of espionage and bisexuality. In 1980, a book titled Errol Flynn, The Untold Story, shook the public. Author Charles Hyam claimed that Flynn had secretly been a Nazi sympathizer and even worked as a German spy during World War II. The accusations were based on unverified reports and rumors, but they were explosive, and they lit a firestorm of debate. Hyam didn't stop there. He also suggested that Flynn had been bisexual, engaging in relationships with men behind closed doors, including with alleged Nazi operatives. Whether these claims were true or not, they challenged the carefully built image of Flynn as the womanizing heartthrob and Hollywood bad boy. Flynn's family and friends were outraged. They denied everything, calling the book slander and attempting to sue. But the damage was done. The idea that Flynn had hidden another life behind the curtain added a new layer of mystery and darkness to his already controversial persona. Other individuals came forward with their own disturbing stories. One man claimed Flynn and his father used to engage in drug-fueled parties with underage girls, a claim that echoed past allegations and trials. Though no definitive proof ever surfaced, these stories further chipped away at Flynn's once golden reputation. Transition. Even as new generations discovered his films, the man behind the sword and smirk became harder to separate from the chaos he left behind. Still, Flynn's place in pop culture persisted, but now his image was far more complicated than ever before. Cultural impact and mythos. Despite, or perhaps because of, his scandals, Errol Flynn's image endured. He became the blueprint for the Hollywood rogue, handsome, daring, and dangerous. Generations of actors tried to imitate his swagger, but few could match the magnetic mix of charm and destruction he embodied. The phrase, "in like Flynn," became part of everyday slang, symbolizing someone who could get anything or anyone they wanted. But over time, it came to represent something darker. A man who could break rules and escape consequences simply because he was famous. In many ways, Flynn personified both the glamour and the rot of early Hollywood. His films, especially The Adventures of Robin Hood and Captain Blood, are still studied for their visual brilliance and his captivating presence. He made heroism look easy. But today, viewers can't watch them without also knowing what lay beyond the screen: the secrets, the scandals, and the people he hurt. Still, Flynn's legacy lives on in pop culture, books, and documentaries. He's both a symbol of old-school masculinity and a cautionary tale of unchecked fame. His story forces us to ask, can you love the performance while condemning the man? And is charm an excuse or just a mask? So as we come to the end of Flynn's story, we're left with a legacy that's neither clear-cut nor clean. The final truth about Errol Flynn is that he was many things, some admirable, some appalling. But one thing is certain: his story still haunts Hollywood. Reflection and reassessment. Looking back, Errol Flynn's life was like a movie, full of action, danger, romance, and tragedy. But it wasn't a happy ending. He died young, his legacy tainted by trials, addictions, and scandal. He was once adored by millions, but he hurt many in the process of chasing his pleasure and pride. In his autobiography, My Wicked, Wicked Ways, Flynn wrote, "I like my whiskey old and my women young." It was supposed to be clever. Instead, it became a chilling summary of a man who lived for thrill and excess. He didn't just burn the candle at both ends, he lit it with dynamite. Today, we reassess men like Flynn not just for what they gave us on screen, but for what they took behind it. He was undeniably talented, deeply charismatic, and unforgettable. But he was also dangerous, self-absorbed, and damaging to many who crossed his path. Flynn may have died 70 years ago, but his secrets didn't. They outlived him, revealing a man who was far more complex and far more disturbing than the legend Hollywood once sold us. And that's why his name still echoes, not just in film history, but in every conversation about fame, power, and the price of getting away with everything.